My parents said I could join the family vacation if I paid my own way. I said no thanks. Then I got a notification. My card was already charged for their flights, hotels, and spa packages. I just opened my app, hit dispute all, and froze the card. At the gate, my brother texted, "They're denying our tickets." "What did you do?" I replied, "What you said, I'm paying my own way." The next day, they broke into my house, and then When my parents told me they were going to Hawaii and that I could come too, if I paid for everything myself, I didn't argue. I just smiled and said no thanks. I figured they'd go, come back with some cheesy souvenirs, maybe a sunburn or two, and I'd go on with my life, as usual. I didn't expect them to try and take me along financially anyway. It was a week before their departure when I got the first inkling something was off. I was checking my credit card app to make sure I had enough available credit for a business equipment purchase. That's when I saw it. $11,500 worth of charges, airline tickets, a beachfront resort in Maui, spa packages, fine dining pre-bookings, and some romantic excursion add-on that was clearly not for me. I thought it was some fraud attempt. Until I saw the email confirmation tied to my name and address. I called the resort. My parents had booked a luxury trip for themselves, my sister, and her boyfriend, all in my name and on my card. They knew I wouldn't have agreed if they'd asked. I guess they thought they could spin it as some misunderstanding after the fact. Or maybe they didn't think I'd notice until it was too late to do anything. What they didn't count on was that I wasn't in the mood to be played. I didn't even call them. I just opened the app and clicked dispute all. Then I called the card company, explained everything, and had the card blocked and replaced. Took about 15 minutes total. I was walking out of my office when my phone buzzed. A text from my brother popped up, who wasn't even invited on the trip, by the way, probably because he's too broke to impress anyone. "They're refusing to give us our tickets. What did you do?" I just wrote back, "What you told me to do, I'm paying for myself." Apparently, the airline didn't take it well when the card was flagged for fraud, and the booking was cancelled mid-check-in. I didn't hear anything else from them until the next day. Around 9 a.m., I heard someone pounding on my door. It was my parents, my sister, and her boyfriend. They weren't sun-kissed and relaxed. They looked furious and embarrassed. They didn't even wait for me to invite them in. They just pushed past me, shouting over each other, demanding to know how I could do this to them. My sister's boyfriend was quiet at first, just kind of stunned. They had told him that I had offered to pay for the trip. They didn't have the money to cover it. They'd spent weeks hyping up the idea of a family vacation to him, and now they looked like liars and freeloaders. Because they were. I asked them point blank why they thought they could just help themselves to everything I had. $11,500 isn't just vacation money for me. It's everything. I'd given them access to a secondary card for emergencies, real ones, not to live out some fantasy in Maui. They tried to spin it like it was an investment in the future. That I should be happy to help the family, especially since they were trying to impress someone who might soon be part of it. That part clicked weird with me. My sister's boyfriend barely knew me, but apparently I was already supposed to bankroll his approval. When they realized I wasn't budging, they stormed out. My mom yelled something about how she was going to be humiliated when people found out they didn't go on the trip. My dad mumbled something about ungrateful children. My sister wouldn't even look at me. But that wasn't the end. That was just the start. I really thought they'd leave me alone after that scene in my living room. That once they realized the trip wasn't happening and the money wasn't magically reappearing, they'd go sulk and stew in private. But this was my family. Logic didn't mean much to them. It started quietly. A few emails from vendors asking if my mom was still handling invoicing. That was odd, because she hadn't touched anything in days. I logged into my business systems and saw her account was still active, poking around. Not changing anything, just watching. She'd been helping me with admin stuff for about a year. I paid her $2,200 a month to handle emails, billing, and a few client follow-ups. It was mostly busy work, but she loved telling people she was managing part of my company. Made her feel important. And I figured, why not? It saved me time, and she stayed out of my way. But now, after what they pulled, I was done playing nice. I revoked her access that night. Changed passwords, locked accounts, notified the clients directly. The next morning, she left a string of voicemails, ranging from confused to furious. Then she sent a long email about how I had stripped her of her dignity, and that I was letting money ruin our family. No mention of the stolen vacation funds. No apology. Then my dad showed up. No call. Just rang the bell, arms crossed, waiting like it was me who owed him something. He walked in like he owned the place, sat down, and started talking about how this family always stuck together. Said I was taking things too far, that they didn't think I'd actually dispute the charges, and now they were embarrassed in front of my sister's boyfriend. I didn't say much until he brought up the money. That they were in a rough patch, and just wanted to give the family something to smile about. I laughed, couldn't help it. $11,500. For spa packages, luxury rooms, and oceanfront views. Not exactly a smile kind of budget. I told him I knew what they were really doing. That the vacation wasn't just for relaxation. It was a performance. They were trying to convince Liam, my sister's boyfriend, that we were some picture-perfect, financially comfortable family. That if he married her, he was marrying into stability. And that maybe he'd feel obligated to help them out. Support them. Carry them, like I had been doing quietly for years. My dad didn't even argue. He just got quiet and left. That's when I knew I had to talk to Liam. I reached out, told him we needed to talk, just the two of us. No drama, no pressure. We met at a quiet diner near his place. I told him everything. About the money, the trip, the real reason behind it. That they used my name, my card, and tried to pass me off as some generous brother to cover up their desperation. That they never intended to pay me back. He didn't get angry. He didn't even look surprised. Just sat there, nodded slowly, and thanked me for being honest. Said he'd been wondering why everything felt so performative lately, like he was being sold something. A week later, he called me out of the blue. He said he appreciated what I did, and that he'd been thinking. He had this side business, nothing flashy, but it was picking up steam fast. Too fast for him to handle on his own. He needed someone who could organize chaos. Someone who could turn a growing mess into something stable. He thought I was that guy. I didn't commit right away, but I was curious. We met up again, and he walked me through the numbers, the projections, the clients he had lined up. It wasn't a scam or a favor, it was real. A partnership. I told him I'd think about it. But in my head, I already knew I was in. I just needed to tie up one more loose end before stepping into something new. Because the old life, quietly funding my family's delusions while running a small business I didn't even enjoy anymore, that part was done. Something bigger was coming. I could feel it. Once I decided to step away from my small business and take Liam up on his offer, I started moving differently. Quiet. Focused. I didn't announce anything. I didn't post online. I didn't even tell close friends. The fewer people who knew, the fewer ways it could backfire. The warehouse lease was coming to an end anyway. I stopped accepting new contracts and began offloading equipment. No dramatic shutdown, just a quiet wind down. I didn't owe anyone explanations, and I wasn't in the mood to offer any. But even in silence, my family knew something had changed. It started with my sister. She sent this carefully worded email, more like a therapy letter than anything else, saying she understood that I was upset and that she respected my boundaries. Then she added how stressed my mom had been, how dad was barely eating, how the house felt cold. She said they were all just trying to do something nice for once, and it blew up. She didn't mention the $11,500. Not once. I read it and didn't answer. That's when her tone shifted. The next email was shorter. Sharper. She said I'd made my point and now I was just being cruel. That I'd embarrassed them in front of Liam, that I'd humiliated our parents, and that if I thought I could just walk away after everything they did for me, I was delusional. That part stuck with me, everything they did for me. I guess in her mind, housing and feeding me as a child came with interest. I left it unread. A day later, my mom called. I didn't answer. She left a voicemail, 5 minutes of rambling that started off tearful and ended angry. The usual script. I was breaking the family. I was letting money change me. I was pushing them into poverty. Then she mentioned the business. Said she noticed her access was cut off. She called it an overreaction. Like skimming thousands off my card and trying to manipulate a stranger into supporting their retirement was just an awkward dinner conversation. That voicemail was followed by one from my dad. He skipped the guilt and went straight to rage. Said he'd lost the consulting contract. Apparently someone called him out for billing hours he never worked. He blamed me for starting the chain reaction. Said I made him look bad. That he can't get anything going now because of the mess I made. As if any of this was my doing. Then came the moment I knew they were spiraling. They emailed me, jointly this time, with an offer to start paying me back for the vacation. $100 a month. I stared at the message, thinking it had to be a joke. At that rate, I'd get my money back sometime in the 2030s. And they wanted me to agree to it in writing. Probably so they could use it as leverage later and say I accepted the terms. I replied with exactly one sentence. No. That was it. After that, it got personal. My sister accused me of sabotaging her relationship. She said Liam was pulling away and it was my fault. She told me I used him to get revenge on the family. That I poisoned him with lies made him doubt her, and now she looked pathetic in front of someone she wanted to marry. That accusation made me realize something. She wasn't mad about the breakup. She was mad about the exposure. Liam saw behind the curtain. And now she couldn't spin things anymore. I called Liam the next day. I didn't pressure him, didn't ask for details. I just told him that no matter what happened with my sister, I appreciated what he did, for listening, for being straight with me, for the opportunity. He thanked me for the same. That evening, he ended things with her. And that's when everything exploded. My phone lit up like a Christmas tree. Calls, texts, voicemails, emails. All of them furious. My mom screamed about how I ruined my sister's future. My dad said I was no longer part of the family. My sister said she hoped I'd end up broke and alone and that Liam was only using me. They said I was a snake. A traitor. A disgrace. They made it clear I was dead to them. What they didn't know was that I'd just secured my future. Liam and I were finalizing contracts for the new venture. My cut would be substantial, well beyond what I ever earned from the small business. I wasn't rolling in money yet, but I was on the path. For once, I could breathe without wondering what corner of my life they tried to control next. And the $11,500? That was already in the process of being returned, thanks to the fraud dispute. I wasn't losing sleep over it anymore. I'd spent years being the backup plan for people who never had one of their own. Now, they'd have to figure it out without me. After Liam broke up with my sister, everything in my family's world unraveled fast. The breakup wasn't quiet either. Apparently, she had told her friends they were already ring shopping, even hinted at a possible engagement party. She was crushed. Not because she lost him, but because she lost the image. The future she'd built in her head. She posted a dramatic message on social media. Something about betrayal, snakes in the grass, fake family. She never named me, but everyone in our circle could figure it out. For the first time, I saw how wide their manipulation had reached. Mutual friends reached out, trying to get both sides. A couple of them even took her side. That was fine. I didn't need to defend myself to anyone. I buried myself in work with Liam's startup. It was all real now, contracts signed, systems integrated, clients on board. And the numbers? Better than expected. We were projecting nearly $9,000 a month for me in the first quarter alone. After scraping by for so long, it felt surreal. Then, out of nowhere, something unexpected happened. About 3 weeks into this new chapter, I got a letter. A real one. Handwritten, delivered to my mailbox, no return address. I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was from my sister's ex-husband. I hadn't spoken to him in years. The divorce was messy, and my family practically excommunicated him afterward. I never knew the full story, just that he wasn't right for her, and disrespected the family. Classic lines. But now, here he was, writing to me. The letter was short. He said he'd heard about everything that went down through mutual acquaintances. Said he wasn't surprised. It was the same pattern he experienced when he was married to my sister. Said he got out before they could drain him dry, and he was sorry I didn't get out sooner. Then, at the bottom, a weird sentence. If you ever want something solid, give me a call. I might have a better seat for you at my table. That phrase stuck with me. I debated for a day. Then I called him. We met for lunch, neutral place, no pressure. He was doing better than I expected. Remarried, running a specialized logistics firm downstate. Said he needed someone sharp to manage one of the regional operations, someone who wouldn't flinch under pressure or crumble when things got tense. He told me he'd been watching what I'd done from a distance. Said he respected how I handled the family situation, especially the way I cut them off without drama. He'd worked with people like them before, knew how dangerous it could get when you made yourself their plan A, B, and C. Then he offered me a role. Higher pay. More stability. Bigger future. It wasn't easy to say goodbye to the startup. Liam had been good to me, but we talked it through. I explained the offer, the long-term fit, and how I needed to make decisions now with my sanity in mind, not just money. He understood. No hard feelings. He even offered to introduce me to investors if I ever wanted to circle back later. That kind of respect? I hadn't felt that from anyone in my family in years. By the end of that month, I'd officially closed my small business and transitioned into the new role. My first paycheck was just under $9,000. Clean. Earned. Mine. And for the first time in a long while, my bank account didn't feel like a survival line. It felt like a starting point. I didn't hear from my family much after that, except for a single message from my mom that read, "Hope you're happy." We're not. She was right. I was. Once the first few $9,000 checks hit my account, I started to understand how different life could feel when you weren't constantly calculating how many days late a payment could be before someone noticed. I moved into a better apartment, clean, quiet, not luxurious, but it didn't have leaky faucets or cigarette smoke baked into the walls. I stopped living like I was one broken appliance away from disaster. No one knew I'd closed my business except Liam and a few old clients. I didn't post about the new job, didn't share anything online. I wasn't hiding, I just wasn't broadcasting. I'd learned that good news had a way of turning toxic when the wrong people felt excluded from it. But silence has a way of drawing attention. And sure enough, it started with a knock at my door. It was my mom. I hadn't seen her in person since the day they barged into my house over the cancelled vacation. Now here she was, holding a Tupperware of something, like we were neighbors, not people who'd cut ties over $11,500 and years of manipulation. She didn't ask if she could come in. She just said she was worried about me. That she wanted to make sure I was okay, after everything. I didn't open the door more than a crack. I asked her how she found my new address. She said something vague about a Christmas card list and our shared family resources. That told me everything I needed to know. She'd found it through some old shared login or snooped through mail before I officially updated everything. When she realized I wasn't letting her in, her tone changed. Said it felt wrong for a son to shut his mother out like this. That families forgive. I asked her if she had any intention of paying back the money they spent. She blinked like the question surprised her. Then she said, "It wasn't about the money, Kevin. You made it about the money." I closed the door. That same evening, I got a fraud alert from the bank. Someone had tried to reset the password on one of my oldest business checking accounts, one I hadn't touched in over a year. It still had a few $100 sitting in it. Just enough for someone to think it might be worth trying. The recovery email on the attempt? An address tied to my dad? I froze the account, changed everything again, and filed a report. I knew it wouldn't go far legally, but I wanted it documented. It wasn't the money, it was the message. They were trying to get back in. Any way they could. I didn't hear from them for a few days. Then my sister sent me a text. "You're pathetic. Running from your own family and hiding behind other men." That one actually made me pause. I knew exactly what she was doing. Trying to poke the one bruise she thought still hurt. That I wasn't strong enough to face them, that I'd let Liam and her ex-husband rescue me. That I couldn't make moves without being someone's side project. It was so transparent it would have been funny if it weren't so tired. I didn't reply. But then something unexpected happened. One night, around midnight, I got a call from an unknown number. I don't usually pick those up, but something told me to answer. It was my brother. He sounded off, tired, maybe drunk, I couldn't tell. He didn't waste time. "I didn't touch your accounts," he said. I sat up. "What?" "I know what they're saying. That I helped. That I gave them your info." I didn't. I didn't know what to say. We hadn't spoken in months. He wasn't even supposed to be involved in all this, but with my family, nobody was ever truly on the sidelines. "They're desperate," he said. "They've been trying to figure out a way to make you make it right. They're saying you owe the family for ruining everything. For turning Liam against us. For shutting out Mom." I asked him why he was telling me this. He was quiet for a few seconds. Then he said, "Because you're not wrong, Kev. You were just first." Then he hung up. I sat there staring at the wall for a long time. Not because I was afraid, but because it confirmed what I already knew. They weren't going to stop. They weren't capable of stopping. They didn't want peace. They wanted access. And now that they didn't have it, they were unraveling in every direction. But I was no longer the soft landing. Not anymore. The call from my brother stuck with me longer than I expected. I hadn't heard him sound that sober in years. He always drifted around family chaos like it didn't affect him. Now, he sounded like someone who'd finally realized the storm had a center. And that it wasn't me, it was them. I didn't respond to him. Not then. I appreciated the warning, but I had other things to focus on. The job with my sister's ex-husband, David, was going better than expected. What started as a regional ops role turned into something closer to full-on partnership. He trusted me with key accounts, decision-making power, even client strategy. Within 4 months, I wasn't just earning $9,000 a month. I was running entire divisions. The difference in how he treated me compared to my own family was almost jarring. If I had an idea, he listened. If I needed resources, he found them. If I said no to something, it was respected. No guilt trips. No backdoor manipulations. Just business done right. For the first time in my life, I didn't feel like I had to apologize for being smart, or careful, or protective of my time. I thought that was going to be the end of the story. But it wasn't. One night, I got home late from a client dinner. When I stepped into the hallway of my apartment building, I noticed something off. My doormat was gone. At first, I thought maybe it had blown away. But the next thing I saw made me stop cold. A handwritten note slipped under my door. No envelope. No name. "You don't get to erase your blood." It wasn't signed, but I didn't need a signature. I knew who wrote it. The handwriting was familiar. It was my father's. I filed a report with building security. They reviewed footage, nothing useful. Whoever left it had waited until a blind spot in the hallway cam. Typical. That was it for me. I changed my phone number. Got a P.O. box. Put a freeze on my credit again and updated every password, including ones I hadn't touched in years. Then I did something I didn't expect to do. I met up with Liam. We hadn't spoken in a while, just the occasional message. He'd moved on, was seeing someone new, and doing well. But he was still someone I trusted. We sat down for coffee, and I told him everything. The note. The attempted account access. The uninvited visit from my mom. The call from my brother. He listened carefully. Then he said something I hadn't thought about. "You know what the scariest part is? They still think this is temporary. That you'll fold eventually." I asked him what he would do. He leaned back and said, "You've got options now. Leverage. Influence. Power. They hate that. But they also respect it, even if they never admit it." That stuck with me. I went home that night and started writing a letter. Not to them, to myself. A list of everything they'd taken from me over the years. Not just money. Energy. Time. Peace. Opportunities. Trust. Then I wrote a second list. Everything I'd gained since cutting them off. When I finished, I realized something simple. I didn't owe them anything. Not even anger. So I did one final thing. I called my lawyer and asked him to draft something simple but airtight, a formal cease and desist. I had it delivered to each of them individually. My parents. My sister. Even my brother. It wasn't aggressive. Just clear. Any further contact, direct or indirect, would result in legal action. I wasn't bluffing. They didn't respond. Not a word. And just like that, the noise stopped.